I'll say it again. Blessings and burdens are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Sometimes the exact same event can be a blessing or a burden just based on your perception and how you act. This chapter is finding the opportunity. And it's the last section in this part about perception that we're going to study before we move on. And it's really important. Finding the opportunity in the obstacle is the advanced portion. The first step of the obstacle is the way is to strip all of the negative associations that we have with our perception of that obstacle, as seeing this as something that is in my way. Just stripping it of the negative aspects, that's part one. Advanced part is not only seeing it as neutral, but looking for where there is an actual advantage. That's when we're going to turn it into the way. Finding the opportunity, like this chapter is going to talk about. He uses the example of the war hero Dwight Eisenhower, who becomes the president. During World War II, he is credited with one of the turning moments when he went in to the general's table and said, look, the Germans are kicking our butts with this method called the Blitzkrieg, and we have to stop thinking about this strategy as something that we cannot defeat, that just strikes fear into our hearts. We need to find out how it is actually an advantage to us. And that's when it got people's thinking to flip a little bit, and they thought, oh, well, it does require a lot of the people to be in one place at one time. And boom, all of a sudden, what made the Germans' offensive so scary and powerful was also the key to taking it down. And so that was the opportunity that was found in the obstacle. The point of this chapter is that blessings and burdens are not mutually exclusive. I love that line. Think about it. I'll say it again. Blessings and burdens are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Sometimes the exact same event can be a blessing or a burden just based on your perception and how you act. Another example that is given in this chapter is funny. It's Socrates. We're talking 2,000 years ago, philosopher, is known to have had a nagging, mean wife. If any of you have ever felt like, oh man, my significant other is nagging me or mean or calling me out, Socrates saw this not as a burden, but as an opportunity for him to practice the same philosophical ideas that he was teaching. What a mental flip, right? The same thing that would seem like just the worst thing ever turned out to benefit him as a philosopher. And so it is with almost any obstacle that we can imagine if we're looking for the opportunity. Another interesting point is when they do studies looking at the most successful athletes, in the majority of their cases, they find some sort of serious injury or traumatic event in their past that athlete had to overcome. And so counterintuitively, and maybe even ironically, it was an advantage in those cases for those athletes to have suffered some sort of trauma or serious injury. That the amount of growth that came from that struggle is what propelled them to where they got. And in some ways, the greater the struggle, the greater the growth. And if you embrace that principle, that the greater the struggle, the greater the growth, that means that the enemy isn't actually the enemy or the problem or the trial. The enemy is any perception that keeps you from seeing the opportunity. When you think about some of the things that we complain about people being mean, rude, inconsiderate, etc., think about the flip side. Do we actually get any kind of strategic advantage over someone who's just being polite? Or someone pulling their punches? Is that going to actually help you get stronger? If your older brother lets you win every time, are you actually going to improve? Really, some of those same things that we see as just like pounding on us is what's actually making us grow. So that's the challenge, right? Is are we able to focus on the opportunity that seems to be a little bit hidden? Ryan Holiday calls it receiving a gift that is poorly wrapped and initially repulsive, but as we unwrap it and examine it, find out where the true value and benefit is. And so can we focus on that? And can we treat the things coming into our lives that are maybe initially give us that kind of repulsion or that kind of like offsetting thing seen as an obstacle? Can we unwrap it as the gift that it can be? Because that's what all these examples that he's used have done. And that's the real ticket to extreme growth and creativity.